Have you ever wondered why some men walk into a coffee shop not needing to have a standout appearance, not saying a word, yet cause a young woman to glance at them and not be able to look away? Why can a man over 50 with a few strands of grey hair still make a 25-year-old girl blush when their eyes meet? This is not magic, nor is it because he is rich or famous. In reality, most of these men are quite ordinary, but they possess something that young women simply cannot resist, something that most young men are still fumbling to find. And it has nothing to do with money. In fact, it doesn't even come from physical appearance or well-crafted words. It comes from within, from a calm, confident, and mature allure that makes others pause and listen. I am Mila, a middle-aged woman who has accompanied hundreds of older men on their journey to find true love. I have spent hours sitting with men who have experienced broken hearts, rejection, and thought that their age had closed the door on any romantic opportunities. And then I witnessed one by one these men discovering a shocking truth. Many young women today secretly long for older men. They don't say it, they don't admit it, but their eyes, their reactions, and how they soften when touched emotionally by a mature man are the clearest confessions. Do you want to know the real reason? Do you want to know what makes a young woman choose a man who is 2 or 3 decades older than her instead of a guy her own age? If the answer is yes, then stay with me in this video, because I am about to share with you 5 truths that young women will never say, but their hearts whisper every night, "Am I too old for her to notice me?" This is the most common question I've heard from experienced men. They carry with them a sense of insecurity, feeling left behind by time, especially when faced with a young, beautiful, vibrant woman. But the truth is, the most attractive thing to young women isn't age, it's the state within a man. Age is not a barrier, it's a highlight, but only when you stop viewing it as a warning and start seeing it as a natural advantage. I once met a man named Daniel, 56 years old, widowed and completely lost confidence in himself after more than 20 years of marriage. In our first conversation, he said, "I'm not attractive anymore, my skin is no longer tight, I have a belly, I can't run like I used to." I asked, "So what do you think a young woman wants?" Daniel fell silent. Then he told me about a strange coffee encounter a few weeks ago. A young woman sitting at the next table kept looking at him, smiling lightly when their eyes met. But he didn't dare to strike up a conversation. He thought, maybe she's looking at someone behind me, or maybe she's smiling at someone else. "No, Daniel, she was looking at you. Because in you there is something that not every young man has, a calm and compelling presence. You may not realize it, but women can sense clearly the presence of a confident man who doesn't need to prove anything, a man who isn't trying to impress, but simply exists with a mature, steady and profound energy. If you've ever entered a room and no one noticed, it's not because you're older, it's because you didn't step in with the energy of a man who knows exactly who he is. On the other hand, if you walk in with inner peace, unwavering eyes and a calm smile, you'll make someone's heart race whether you're 45 or 65. Young women today are very familiar with guys who are always in a rush, trying to score points by talking too much, promising too quickly, and turning every moment into a performance. But there's one thing they don't expect, something they've never been taught, but their instincts tell them, and that is the calmness. In a mature man has a strangely magnetic appeal. It's not the cold, distant silence, but an inner peace. A kind of energy that's not loud but present, and because it's so rare when it shows up, it pulls women in irresistibly. I once heard a 24-year-old woman talk about the man she's dating. A man 19 years older than her. He doesn't talk much, but whenever he looks at me, I feel like the world stops for a moment. It feels more stable, more certain. I don't feel the need to prove anything. Just being with him, I feel strangely safe. You see, safety doesn't come from money or promises. It comes from how you show up, when you don't rush, when you don't feel the need to win her over, when you simply listen, truly listen, not to reply, but to feel calmness makes you different. In a world where everyone is talking, everyone is telling their story. A man who knows when to be silent is the one who makes her want to get closer. And when a young woman senses that calmness, that inner space, she will naturally surrender to it, because nothing is more seductive to a woman than the feeling of being herself next to a man who doesn't demand, doesn't force, and isn't in a hurry. I want to share a story that I'll never forget. It shows a very real truth that a man's attraction doesn't lie in the big things, but in how he responds to the smallest things. Rob, a 45-year-old client of mine, recently went through a tough divorce after 18 years of marriage. He was an introverted, quiet man, deeply wounded. When I first met Rob, he said, "I don't think I can love anyone anymore, especially a young woman." But after just a few months of working together, Rob began to change, not by learning pickup techniques, but by reconnecting with himself. He learned how to enter a meeting, not with the goal of conquest, but to connect, truly. And then one evening, Rob went on a date with a 27-year-old woman, a young, sharp, experienced woman, as skeptical as he was. They sat in a small restaurant, soft lighting, quiet music. She ordered a medium steak, but when it arrived, it was overcooked. I know in that situation, many men would stay silent, afraid of making her uncomfortable, afraid of being judged as demanding, or, on the other hand, they might become excessively authoritative. But Rob did none of that. He gently called the server over, and with a polite smile said, "Sorry, this seems to be overcooked. Could you help us with a medium rare one?" Nothing more, nothing less. No tone of superiority, no showing off power. But in that moment she looked up at him, her gaze slowly changing. A look I've seen in hundreds of women when they realize I'm sitting next to a real man. After that night, she initiated texting Rob, not because the food was great, but because for the first time in a long time she felt held safe. In a world where women often have to toughen up to protect themselves, that's the real power of an older man, not needing to prove anything, but always making others feel whole when they're around him. There are things young women never say out loud, but their eyes speak for them. The small actions, the moments of silence, and the way their attitude slowly shifts when they're with a man who's different, not a young, energetic guy, but a mature, calm man with depth. Young women are often stereotyped as superficial, practical, or only interested in bad boys or handsome guys. But in reality, what they truly long for, sometimes still unnamed, is something more. And older men, if they're perceptive, will recognize these signals faster than anyone else. The first thing they need is to be truly listened to, not the kind of listening to respond to, correct, or to make a point, but the kind of listening that makes them feel seen. When a man sits across from them, puts his phone down, looks them in the eye, doesn't judge, doesn't interrupt, that's when a part of their heart starts to open. The second thing is emotional safety. They're not looking for a perfect man. They're looking for someone who won't turn their emotions into a burden. When they're happy, the man shares in that joy. When they're weak, he doesn't panic or pull away. When they're angry, he doesn't react, but holds the space for them to be themselves. That's safety. Not because the man is too strong, but because he doesn't waver in the face of someone else's feelings. And lastly, is intellectual and soulful stimulation. A man who has lived often has stories, experiences, and perspectives that intrigue young women, making them want to explore. They sense in him a depth, not as a teacher, but as a guide, mesmerizing. When two souls meet, all limits of age fade away. So if you think you're out of style, remember, young women don't need you to be young again. They just need you to be real and to be fully present. A very common mistake many older men make is thinking they must prove their worth to deserve a younger woman. They help, they listen, they offer advice, and gradually they turn themselves into an emotional-less teacher. Someone trying to prove value with knowledge, but forgetting that women don't fall in love because you're smart. They fall in love because they feel connected. You can make her admire you, even be grateful. But if throughout the relationship you don't spark any romantic emotions, Don't be surprised when she calls you a good big brother or a wonderful mentor. That's the friend zone where there's no desire, no longing, and certainly no love. A mature man should not merely exist as a warm shadow behind her. He needs to let the woman see that I am the man. I have desire, I have magnetism, I have life inside. And the way to show this is not with words, but with energy. A gaze that lingers for a few extra seconds, a light smile mixed with a little mischief, a teasing joke with a soft implication, or simply the comfort of letting the space between you two shrink a little for her to feel like a woman. Flirting doesn't mean being crude or lacking manners. On the contrary, it's an art. It requires subtlety, observation, and knowing when to take a step forward. Women feel this very clearly, and it's this gentle push and pull that makes them remember you, think about you, and long to be closer. So don't be afraid to show your attraction, because if you don't, someone else will. And when you're placed in the reliable friend role, it's hard to return to the man who makes her heart race roll. This is something I want all older men to keep in mind. You don't need to be young again to attract a younger woman. You don't need to change how you dress to look like a Gen Z guy, or start talking like influencers on social media, or use slang to be on trend. Real attraction doesn't come from being like them. It comes from being completely different. You've lived through the storms of life. You're no longer lost in youthful choices. You know who you are, what you want, and you're not afraid to let go of things that aren't meant for you. That's a kind of freedom that many younger men still haven't reached. And women sense this. When you don't try to rejuvenate yourself, but stand firm in your true identity, she will see something in you that she has never seen in anyone else. A quiet, deep allure, just enough to make her feel safe, but also mysterious enough to make her want to explore it forever. You don't need to race against time. Let time be your ally. Every wrinkle, every scar, every story is proof of a life well lived. Be proud of that. And if you still doubt whether someone is truly seeking a man like you, the answer is yes. There are young women, strong, independent, intelligent, but inside they still have a soft heart, longing to be touched by the steadiness of a real man. A man who doesn't need to show off, doesn't need to rush, just needs to be present with a genuine heart and eyes deep enough to see her beyond the exterior. So the next time you find yourself standing before a young woman and your heart skips a beat, don't pull back. Look at her with steady eyes, smile, and let your experience speak before you even say a word, because it's possible that you are the man she has been waiting for all along without even knowing your name. Trust me, there are young women secretly hoping for a man like you to enter their lives. No need for red roses, fancy cars, or a thick bank account. Just be yourself, the real, confident, experienced version of you. And one day, if a young woman's eyes linger on you, don't be surprised, because she has realized something you never knew. You are far more attractive than you think.